I've recently had a chance to go see the Hobbit movie, and I felt like doing a review on it. I'm sure everyone else has done a review on a movie already, and it's probably out of theaters, but yeah, I feel like it. It's my YouTube channel, so I get to. The good parts of The Hobbit. I like the songs. I know they cut them from Lord of the Rings. They really wouldn't have fit the tone there, but here it works a whole lot better. They're cute or, emotional or humorous as they need to be. The Misty Mountains song in the beginning, very well done. You get a feeling that all the dwarves are just homesick, want to go home, but they can't because there's a big dragon that's waiting to kill them all. And you have the song where they're cleaning up. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Much better done than the cartoon, where in the cartoon they were making a mess. Here they were cleaning up very efficiently and just screwing with his head. The Goblin Town one was amusing as well. I forget the name of the actor for the Goblin King. I'll look him up and put him in the notes, but he did a very good job. Very jovial, but still menacing at times. The visuals, very good. Wherever this is filmed, I believe it's New Zealand. It fits the fantasy world very, very well. Um, on that alone, I'd probably buy an art book for it, but I don't think they'd ever release something like that. Um, Something to note, though, the area where the dwarves are being chased by the orcs, I believe that's the same area where in the Two Towers are being the Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are looking for the hobbits, and it kind of stuck out really obviously. It's not really a bad point. It's just, oh, we've been here before. The acting also is a very good, very strong point for it, especially Bilbo. You can see him grow along in the movie, and there's a particular point that I liked. It was when they were resting in the caves. Bilbo's trying to leave, and I believe it is Ori who tries to talk him out of it, and they go back and forth, and Bilbo mentions something about, he wants to go home. The rest of them are used to living out in the countryside, and you see the look on Ori's face, and Bilbo realizes, oh, I'm just being a complete dick to these people, because they don't really like living out in the countryside like this. They want to go home. And unlike Bilbo, they don't have one. That's really the point where he, makes a decision. I want to stay with these people so they can get their home back, so they can have what he has. It really seems to awaken him to how the reality of the world is, that he's lived a very sheltered life and he's had it so easy, and everyone else has just been miserable. And of course, to repeat what everyone else has said about the acting, Andy Serkis needs an Oscar. I know he's not even going to be nominated, and that's really the travesty of the times. He deserves an acting award. He is really, really good as Gollum. And he can be, a joke at one point in time that's absolutely horrifyingly menacing in a split second. He's really a good actor, and I would seek him out in any film just to see him work. For particular points in the movie, Erebor, the whole thing about it's told in flashback, looks very gorgeous, really a sense of power and majesty and wealth of the thing. You can see, parallels with the old king and Thorin and how they're acting throughout the film. And of course, Smaug. He's not really shown much, and it's much more effective that way. It seems like he's more a force of nature and a thing, an event, rather than an entity. He's just trashing everything, and what pitiful defenses people throw up against him, he just smashes aside. This is not something assemble a plucky band of ragtag misfits to go find. You just run when he comes. They haven't released a voice actor for him yet, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to get the old dialogue from the cartoon, and unfortunately the old voice actor is dead, but he did a really good job with Smaug, and I hope they can keep it up. I'd like them to keep something like the old design, but what little glimpses you get of him, I'm pretty sure he's just going to be, big generic flying lizard. And to move on to the unfortunate bad points of the film, first of all, the unhelpable things, stuff you can't really get around from. There's just too many dwarves. You're going to remember Thorin, maybe Dwalin, he's that bald guy, probably one more, and that's going to be it. There's just way too many of them. They're all visually distinctive, but after a while they just kind of merge into this amorphous blob of dwarf. It's really difficult keeping track of them. I know people have made guides for it, but that kind of reinforces the point. If you need a guide to figure out who's who, there's just too many. Even in the books it was like that. It's just Thorin, everybody else. There's nothing more you can really do about it. You also get this very different feeling from Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit is very much a fairy tale, and this is before Tolkien really just set out with a world with this. So you go from Lord of the Rings to The Hobbit, it's really big difference. When Lord of the Rings, you get this big, feeling of horrifying evil that must be stopped at all costs. Hobbit is much more a tale of you going home, basically. Kicking out, a dragon of all things, but Dragon's really not running around killing people. He's just basically hoarding gold and making, the dwarves miserable because they don't have a home. And, to add on to that, there's a very mixed message in, how the story presents itself. You have Gandalf telling Bilbo, being heroic is knowing when to spare a life and not when to take one. And then, interspersed with, Bilbo sparing Gollum's life because he feels pity for the guy. You have, this big roaring battle, the dwarves killing goblins left and right. Gollum gets spared, but those nameless orcs and goblins, yeah, they're all evil, kill them. It's really more or less something Tolkien had to struggle with, but there's not much you could do with it, so I can't really blame anyone for it. It's just kind of inherent to it. But there are plenty of things I can blame Peter Jackson for, and start off with the most obvious. His editing skills don't exist anymore. This film is almost 3 hours long, and there's a lot of stuff that could be cut. If the special edition was 3 hours long, wouldn't bother me. This is theatrical. If the special edition is going to be even longer, oh boy. There's so much that really should have been cut and moved into a special edition. There's no way this should be 3 movies. This should be 2 at best. The beginning is really slow because it's interspersed with a couple more flashbacks. The Erebor one, I'd keep that in, but the one, where they go to the dwarves go to Moria to try and reclaim it, doesn't need to be in the film. Dane could have just, given a brief synopsis of, why Thorin hates orcs so much because they cost them so much, especially after losing their home. The whole Radagast subplot did not need to be in there. They could have chopped out, at least 20 or 30 minutes with that right then and there. It made the film a little bit more bearable. Radagast is amusing. He isn't really going to mean much in the long run. He's probably going to be dead by the end of movie 3 anyway. It builds on for, when they go fight the Witch King or the Necromancer. But it's not really necessary for the base story, which is getting to Erebor, killing Smaug, reclaiming Erebor for the dwarves. He doesn't really help much. He links it more with Lord of the Rings, but not needed here. And of course, the rivalry with the dwarves and the elves need to be expanded somewhat. You understand why Thorin doesn't like the elves, because they kind of, left them in the cold when, Erebor was being sacked, but you understand from the point of the elves, there's not much they could realistically have done. If the Dwarven army's in ruins, the elves ain't going to do any better against a dragon, especially since he's already in the middle of the thing. There are, you could understand, well, maybe Thorin will just not like those groups of elves when there's other groups of elves who are not affiliated with him, but he just doesn't seem to like any of them, and none of the dwarves do in particular. And you get the feeling that the elves return the feeling, but you're not really sure why the elves feel the need to be dicks to the dwarves, because they can understand they've lost their home, they've lost everything. One of their, relations basically left them out hanging in the wind, so Elrond could at least understand, yeah, they don't kind of like us, they've got some good reasons, let's try not to make anything worse, but it never really picks up from it, so you'd expect better from Elrond as well. That's pretty much my good and bad on the film. I do find it an enjoyable film. I took plenty of time off in the middle of my day when I normally sleep to go watch it. When the next one comes out, I'll watch that as well. I hope someone gets Peter Jackson some scissors, because he needs to learn to edit again. It was not terrible in Lord of the Rings, but here it's just getting worse. I really kind of looked at the movie with dread when it announced, oh, it's going to be 3 films instead of 2. 1, if it was very tight, I could see that they'd chop out a lot of stuff. 2, okay, they can take it at a much slower pace, include more things, make it a better film. 3, this is not a terribly long book. It's going to be as long as Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings was actually legitimately 3 novels. This is, I think, 400 pages. It doesn't need to be 3 films. I get the feeling they're probably only doing this to pad it out so they can make more money, and not necessarily blame them, but much of this could easily have gone into a special edition without any problem. I believe the next film they're probably going to start out going to Bjorn and probably end it with Smaug's death, and the 3rd film they go into the Battle of the 5 Armies, I hope. If they pad it out even more, I don't think this is going to go terribly well. I know that being pretty much the major concern, it takes a long time to start because it's so padded, and then it takes about halfway through the film before it finally gets good. Well, I hope people enjoyed this review or would like to see more in the future. I'm probably going to do what's going on in the game industry right in the few days THQ finally went bankrupt, and I'll be talking about what studios are likely going to be going to what other developers. So, until next time, bye.